So I'm Tim Kelly with Rochester Software Associates. We're happy to have all of you join us for lunch today. We'll move right into a presentation. I'll introduce Tasha Bone-worrall from UPMC. And to give you a little bit of a background, UPMC, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, is a world-renowned medical center providing health care and insurance across the state. Tasha will mention that they handle in their print center both data center as well as in-plan and CRD type work, all combined into one print center. They've got a great story to tell. Tasha has been with UPMC since 2008 and is currently the systems lead for print center pre-production team. She's also responsible for process improvement, project turnaround, typeset design, in-source external print projects, cost savings, and a lot more that you're going to hear about today. Tasha has a Bachelor of Science degree from Washington and Jefferson College, and also has a background in fine art. I understand is quite the artist as well. So I'd like to introduce Tasha and have her tell you about the UPMC story.
Thanks, Tim, for that introduction. As he said, my name is Tasha Bone-worrall from UPMC. UPMC, just a little bit about our company, we're about a $10 billion a year organization. We have over 20 hospitals, and we actually just acquired another hospital as of July. We also provide health insurance services as well. We have 55,000 employees. Out of those 55,000, only 20 of us support our internal print center. Our print center, though, supports all the hospitals, all the health plan printing that we do. We both, as Tim mentioned, we do duplicating and systemic work, so transactional EOBs, checks, physician checks, bills, you name it, we print it. We print about 2,500 to 3,000 jobs a month, with about 10 million impressions coming through our print shop each month, and that's actually increasing since we've actually started and completed this ROI project. So today I just want to take you through UPMC's journey to printing internally, and it has been quite the journey, I will say, with some ups and downs and a lot of convincing along the way. So we started this project with a mystery external print spend that we couldn't actually identify or explain the details behind it. We actually couldn't justify it. So our solution was to become ultimately the first right of refusal for any print job that would come through UPMC. And the benefit to that is that you actually have print experts both in pre-production design and production on the floor who know the industry better than anybody else and who can send the jobs out. Like say, we have an option and we can't print it. We know we still need to send it out. Who better to know the vendors outside than people in the industry that work it every day. So after we decided to become first right of refusal, the annual savings for this was about $2.5 million. The external print spend when we started is about $10.5 to $11 million a year for 2012. And so we expect the external print spend to continue to decrease and then increase our annual savings year after year after we kick this off and get it moving. So the roadmap for this project, just give you a little bit of background about how we started this project, where we came from, where the idea came from for this, a little bit of investigation into our print spend, taking a look at ourselves, a little bit of self-reflection, analysis, and then the plan and the pitch and how we got it approved through upper management. So for UPMC's background, we started out with every hospital having their own little tiny print center somewhere in the basement of the hospital. And we actually combined all the facilities into one central print center. Then we built a print governance committee which comprised of people from throughout the organization. So we have marketing communications, we have somebody from the health insurance provider division, we have somebody from nursing in the hospitals. And it's really to look at overall all of UPMC's printing, all the ideas that we come up with, we pitch to the print governance committee, then we get their buy-in. And with their buy-in, it's like the ultimate support for any project that we want to push through. And we actually monitored office printing as well. And then we kind of got to a standstill with that. And then we established an online ordering tool, which is our web CRD platform that we use every day for duplicating commercial services. So the idea came up in a print governance meeting. As I said, we've exhausted the office printing projects and ways to save. So then somebody said, well, what else can we do? What should we revisit? Let's look at this again. And then internal printing came up, and the print shop's like, well, you guys haven't been looked at for a long time, so let's start looking at you. And we asked, what can't we understand, or what can we explain to finance at the end of the year? The external print spend to outside commercial printers, everybody just kind of looked around and was like, nobody wanted to actually try and answer that question. So from there, we started to really dig in and do a lot of investigation, and the investigation took about 5 to 6 months just to understand our external printing and where it was going. And we did this by figuring out how much we spent. So we spent $10.5 million last year in external printing, who it went to, who were our top 20 suppliers, how much did we send them, what did we send them, how did we get it to them. And this is part of the reason why we got the buy-in from everybody, is that we had all the data that we needed. We had everybody's buy-in and support, so it was a really great thing to do. And it took a long time, but in the end, it was very, very well worth it. The how is the important thing too, is that how is it going to these external suppliers? What were we doing? What methods were we using? Were these email jobs? Are we using another platform? How do they bid on jobs? Like, every job is different. Companies may come in at different prices on each job, so we had to understand and investigate that as well. And when, is it seasonal? Is it all the time? Is it, various times of the year? So we had to investigate that as well. Self-reflection, and this is something that was important to us as well in terms of growing our print shop, because we actually had to take a really hard look at what we do. We do both duplicating and both systemic work. The systemic work is about 60-40 right now, 60-40 split. Transactional work, 60%, duplicating 40%. And do we have the capacity to actually bring on more work? How much work can we bring on? What can't we change? If we wanted to bring on more work, what investments do we have to make? Things like that. What can't we do? Well, we can't do offset printing. UPMC Print Shop is a fully digital print center. We don't do envelope printing, not at this time. That's something we actually want to look at bringing on eventually down the road. And what processes and platforms do we have? So we have web CRD, but we also found out we have an external bidding tool through another supplier. So can we add in some features and use web CRD to our benefit to help, bring that cost in and eliminate a piece of software that we don't really necessarily need? And how can we get better in doing what we do? There's always ways to get better. A lot of features in web CRD have been at our disposal. It just change. People don't really like change. Everybody likes to stay status quo sometimes, so challenging that has been quite the effort. So the analysis of this project is, once we gathered all this data, like I said, 5 or 6 months of investigating, a few more months to figure out what we actually needed and where we needed to go. Then the question was, okay, who cares? So we have this, who's actually affected by it, and how can we get everybody's buy-in? Getting the print governance committee's buy-in is crucial, because whenever we try to roll something out to an entire organization of 55,000 people, there tends to be some pushback. You have some challenges. Not everybody wants to make the change. So we got marketing's buy-in, we got supply chain's buy-in, and we went around to each group that we thought would have the biggest impact and who it would affect the most, and get their support before we actually went to present this to upper management. Without their support, going to upper management would have just been a waste of time. And then you have the so what. You have the naysayers who don't like change, don't want to change, don't necessarily agree with what we're doing. So we had a lot of that. We actually had that up until the very last day that we presented it to upper management. So the way that we squashed that was literally to just understand and take their ideas, investigate, fully appreciate their position and their decisions, and then try and convince them and get their buy-in and get their support moving forward. So after we did our analysis, our self-reflection, our first step was to figure out where we sit in the market and in the industry. UPMC does duplicating and systemic work. We don't do large scale and we don't do offset printing, but are those areas in which we can grow. So we've positioned ourselves kind of in the center, and our goal then is to spread our circle out a little bit wider and wider and wider and bring in as much work as possible. Price comparison, UPMC is a nonprofit organization, so our print center's goal at the end of every month is just to break even. I mean, cover our costs of staff, paper, printing, facility, and that's about it. So, you know, being an implant, there's a lot, you don't have any profit margins, you know, not in it to make money. My staff, my pre-production team, they're already built into the cost. So rush jobs, design jobs, typesetting, they're already covered. So we have a little bit of a benefit over external printing when it comes to certain types of jobs. The capacity was something that we've always been concerned with. How much do we actually send outside? We actually have 22,000 orders that go outside each year that we needed to further investigate, and investigating that's actually really, really difficult. It's spread across 20 different suppliers, and all the printing goes through our purchasing department now. So there's actually no detail into the jobs as to what's sent out. So we have no idea, is it wide format printing we're sending out? Is it systemic work we're sending out? It was very, very hard to identify. And can we handle 22,000 extra jobs through our current staff right now? The answer to that is no. My new staff, 3 new staff start on Monday next week, so I'm extremely excited about that. Capabilities, what can we do and what can't we do? We don't have the capability to print wide format printing. So when looking at and reviewing these 22,000 jobs, looking at those vendors who do wide format printing, we're able to say, okay, you know what, we're not gonna look at yours right now, we'll leave it out. But we can do business cards. We actually pay somebody to print our business cards, but there's no reason why we can't print them internally. So it was a lot of going back and forth on capabilities and capacity, what we can do, what we can't do. And that's important because trying to do everything all at one time is not really gonna work. And I don't really wanna sink our own ship by taking on too much at once. So the pros and cons, obviously, of doing this, and when we presented this, we presented it as a united front with a ton of buy-in and support. We pitched a plan that says, no, we're not gonna go after it all, but we're gonna go after it in phases. We're gonna go after it a little bit at a time. So, you know, we already have a web-to-print platform that can do just about anything we want it to do, and if it can't, we work with the creators and we ask them for support and we ask them to add in features, which we've done several times and we're still doing every day. We're coming up with new ideas and ways to improve. Our end users are not printers. Our end users are nurses, doctors, admins who don't really know much about printing or how to print. So the easier that we can make it for them, the easier we can make it on ourselves. We're able to shift our model of printing, and this is super important for UPMC because in healthcare, it's an ever-changing industry, and we used to have an external print supplier print inventory and stock inventory. And as we find out that forms change every day, a lot of what we print is variable data printing. We're actually getting more and more into that every day. It changes, so there's no need to print. With this type of printing, we can actually print full on-demand 210% as ordered. Nothing sits, nothing is wasted, nothing gets thrown away. So that's a really big benefit to doing it this way and becoming first right of refusal. The cons, there are some investments needed up front. We need investments up front with staff. I have a staff of myself and 2 other people trying to manage the pre-production team. The rest of them are operators, print shop operators. So getting some people on the pre-production side is extremely important. So the analysis that we showed and we presented was really external printing for UPMC back in 2010 was 8 million. 2011 was like 9.5 million. 2012 was 10.5 million, almost 11. So when we pitched this, part of the idea was, okay, if we do nothing, if we do absolutely nothing, where will we be? And the top line shows that by FY18, we'll actually double our external print spending. If we just take a conservative approach and only bring in the little stuff like business cards and forms and things like that, will decrease our growth actually just a little bit. But if we go after it all and we say we're going to be first right of refusal, we'll take a look at every single job that comes through, then we can actually understand what we need and what we want and what we can do, and we'll get a better visual as to what UPMC is printing, not just in terms of hospitals, but in terms of marketing, communication. We can help them print better, print smarter, things like that, and help them design for our own internal print shop. And by doing that, then we'll be able to decrease our external print spending altogether by FY18. So the plan when we pitched this was to take it in phases. And that's part of the reason, it helped us when we went to do some convincing that, we didn't go in there and say we're going to do it all and we don't need anything. We went in there and said, okay, we're going to do this little bit by little bit. We need a little bit up front, but the payoff in the end is well worth it. We actually asked for 3 staff. Like I said, they start next week. We actually worked on streamlining some things up front before they get here. So we're working on increasing our auto flow through WebCRD, which is one of their features that's just awesome. Streamlining other manual processes like our accounting and our bill back. Since we're internal and we're nonprofit, we just bill back each job. Whatever it costs us to print it, we just bill back at the end of each month. Provide more training to our users on the existing software that we have so that it frees up a little bit more of our time handling unclean jobs that come through. Bringing on the additional staff is phase 2. Phase 3 is implementing new features into web to print. So we have our external bidding tool, which is something huge for us. For every job that goes out must be bid on by 3 or 4 different suppliers, including the UPMC Print Center. So instead of, before we used to actually have to bid against ourselves, which almost didn't make sense. So we've actually eliminated that, and all the bids then come to us. We review them. If we're cheaper, we print it. If somebody that can do 50,000 run an offset is much cheaper than us, then we send it outside, no problem. And that's actually a feature that we've had added to WebCRD for our use since it's really important for us to get bid on. And then the other one is becoming first right of refusal, and that's turning off access to all the other external vendors, external print vendors, and have everything funnel through us. We'll determine the suppliers that are needed, the suppliers that have the best quality in our area, establish relationships, and actually build a little bit of volume with each one to help reduce costs with each individual particular vendor. The more volume you push to one, the more benefit that they give you in the end. The other thing is to increase capabilities and capacity. So once we see what all we have printed, we can get new printers, we can get better printers, we can add in features. Actually, the ROI is still going on in terms of a new facility. We're actually looking at bringing on a new iGen and a couple other pieces of new equipment, but they won't fit in our current facilities, so they're actually using the remaining savings for this ROI and using that to get us a new building as well, which would be really great. Down the road, we could use some speed on our side in terms of printing. The other thing is, what's next for us? So over the next year, when we start bringing in all this data and all these print jobs and all the print specifics that are the most important thing of a print job, we can better analyze what we send out, what we need. If the majority of our printing that's going outside is, brochures and binders, why aren't we printing that in-house? That's something we can do. If it's, okay, well, they're doing this type of binding, we don't have that capability. Let's say we add that capability, how much can I save then down the road? This is the ultimate insight into the entire organization's printing, which is why it's so important for our print center and for UPMC to get ahead of it instead of, having people send things out to printers that don't necessarily know what they need or what they should be printing and not necessarily printing smarter, printing smart like they should. And monitoring the materials used. One of the biggest, not the biggest portion, but a big portion of our ROI savings was the materials that we used in savings. We worked with our supply chain department to monitor our paper spend and negotiate that down and get us agreements with our paper suppliers and things like that for the next year. So that's also a big portion of savings. And a side project that we've started to do, like Bob mentioned, is finding other ways you can help service your organization. the UPMC Print Center uses our paper volume to get other plain paper that we actually ship out to other end users. So we print prescription pads and things like that for the entire organization. Some hospitals and some doctors' offices are set to print directly onto security paper. Our cost for the security paper is much cheaper than having our end users go direct to a vendor. So we've actually brought that in-house, have it sitting on our warehouse floor, and then ship that paper out to the hospitals who need it and things like that. And we've done that with several different types as well. But I mean, our ROI is pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward. It was definitely a collaborative effort between printing, finance, supply chain, all the different areas of UPMC, all the different organizations and branches of UPMC to make it come together and stand united, I guess I should say, is the day we presented it.